Ah, great. Now for the real shit to begin.
My vengeance will combine the fury of Achilles with the patience of Prospero. You'll be looking over your shoulder so hard that empty head of yours will unscrew and fall right off. You
Keep it down, Nigma. Don't make me take away your chest strap.
Sorry, Officer Ted.
The combat fails so easily in this part.
Catwoman, I'm going to defeat you from within. Isn't that humiliating?
Oh.
You got us not around anymore.
I pressed counter, what the hell? These fucking lasers.
I was going to track you down after I broke out of here. Thanks for saving me the trouble.
My input didn't register. Oh! I'm just gonna restart. Zero thought put into this fucking DLC. Zero fucking thought. And I'm just making all these mistakes because the poor designs are putting stress upon me. And I'm just limited in combat because I have to do all the fast animations. I can't do counters. I can't do takedowns. I can't waste time with any of that. Because if I do, Catwoman will do a lengthy animation that will cause me to lose time as the floor is slowly electrified. Come on, game. I pressed the takedown button.
This is your home, Riddler bots. Defend it.
God, why is she so weak? And they increased the health of the Riddler bots for no reason in this final phase. And I took damage because the floor is being electrified. Oh, the professional play right now. Yeah, this is entirely my fault. Get good, right? Fucking retards. Thinking that it's all my fault for actually... Look at that! Why is she prioritizing that guy on the electrified floor? This game just... Why didn't they refine the prioritization system more? Or at least make the floor larger or something? Or just not do the electrified floor. Like, the lasers themselves are already annoying enough. But then when you have the fucking electrified floor... And... look at that. See?
Well. What's the cat trick? No.
Just ended up doing an attack animation into that fucking laser. Yeah, the floor is gonna get electrified. There's nothing I can do. And I keep this fucking laser every time. And look, I just keep evading onto the electrified floor. Well, you can't say I'm being inactive. Because if I'm too active, I will touch the electrified floor. And look at it! I have no control over what counter animation she does. If she does an unfavorable animation that gives her enough momentum to step onto the electrified floor, it's not my fault, it's the game's fault. And 4 squares is not enough to handle this fucking combat system. And Catwoman has the worst gadgets for this situation. All she has is just her whip and her bolas. And those are the only weapons that actually work. Her caltrops don't do anything against these enemies.
Pursuing a vendetta against me? How ambitious.
Stop doing the slow counters.
This is your home.
You have to do nothing but critical strikes, because that's the only thing that does a lot more damage. And these enemies are so slow to attack at times. And then at times they're way too fast. There's just so much ambiguity. That is not befitting for this kind of combat scenario.
You've got not around anymore.
And this takedown, while it does hit multiple enemies, it just doesn't do enough damage to warrant being useful.
Well. Look what the cat dressed. No.
Like, this is so against the philosophy that is instilled in the Batman Arkham combat. Forced to limit yourself in combat. Forced to spam certain moves like crazy rather than varying your attacks, because if you vary, you'll hit the electrified floor easily.
You'll regret this.
And if the enemy is spaced out in areas where the electrified floor is going to happen, what the fuck do? You're gonna lose out on your combo, you're gonna do the slower attacks that have no range whatsoever. And look, I'm taking damage in a fucking takedown animation, because she picked an unfavorable animation.
Evening, officer.
And look, I'm down to 4 squares, I have this laser over here. I'm holding R2 and pressing square, and she's not trying to stomp this guy. Like, even when you're not worrying about no damage, this section's still shit. You die so many times because of poor designs. And it's not even poor designs, it's them putting a poorly designed environment with a limited Catwoman, and they're using a combat system that is not built for this fucking environment.
Face it, cat. You're no Batman. And he's overrated too. Overrated?
Are you throwing your bullets in that direction, Lord Catwoman?
How hard can it be to kill one thief?
Ah, like, you have no idea where this laser is going. It has to be this random. Like, it's bad enough as it is, but then you have the fucking electrified floor. Look at it, the enemies just back up, they go forward, they back up, they do whatever the hell they want. And there's more chances for the combat to fuck up.
Evening claws on one set of my money.
It's the worst content I have ever played for any game ever. Like, I can go on and on about Resident Evil Village's poor balancing. This far exceeds Resident Evil Village's poor balancing. This is the worst balance I've ever seen. And people might say, oh, it's challenging, like fucking Tynard would. This would be a perfect content for Tynard, because he has no idea what poor designs are in the game. He wears them like a badge of honor, and he builds runs that just cause you to encounter these designs, and then he considers it to be skillful. Oh, smart tactics. Oh, you're learning the game a lot more. Am I really learning the game a lot more in this kind of fucking scenario? What am I learning? All I'm learning is how shit the combat is. All I'm learning is how dense the developers are. All I'm learning is how little care Rocksteady displayed with this piece of content. Who the fuck are you fooling, people like Tynard? I'm addressing all of you people who are like Tynard, that freak. Tries to defend his actions, saying that, oh, I'm a sadomasochist, I like to suffer in these games. This is actually smart tactics, you're learning the fucking game. Oh, I don't have the right. You said I don't have the right to dictate how people play this and that. Well, developers are going to be taking influences from people like you, and it's going to mess up with their games. I have every right to say that. Like, I'm sure this was designed for people like Tyner. It really feels like it. People who have no idea what balance is, people who have no idea how to comprehend their own designs, people who misunderstand what a fucking challenge is. If you're fighting the game more so than the actual enemies, is this really a challenge? This is tedious. This is broken. This is impractical. Like, the whole idea of a challenge is meant to fall into the realm of common sense, of functionality, not in the realm of stupidity. This falls into the realm of stupidity. There's no sense to it at all. You're forced to limit yourself in combat, and it's perfectly befitting for people like Tynard, who think that actually having a creative combat system is not befitting for actual smart tactics. Actually dragging out scenarios is a good thing. And oh, when I'm talking about the idea of dragging out scenarios being bad, I'm a speedrunner, because he's so simple-minded and can't comprehend proper terminologies, and he just therefore associates it with labeling, saying that, oh, I'm a speedrunner. This is actually befitting for speedrunning, because the game wants you to speed up like crazy. Like, just because I don't support the idea of dragged out scenarios does not mean I'm a speedrunner. I'm someone who actually understands fucking pacing. Fucking retard. Pacing and good design. And this DLC doesn't satisfy any of those. Just look at it. Look at this fucking mess. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm doing whatever I can to build up my multiplier to the gold bar so I can actually do the fucking takedown. But the enemies keep spreading out. They keep backing up and going forward, backing up and going forward. And it's limiting my chances for actually avoiding damage.
When my robots defeat you, make sure to crawl out of my lovely factory and die on the street.
Excerum 17 calls this the hardest fight in Batman Arkham Knight. But this is not hard. This is fucking stupid. A mentally retarded individual designed this piece of content. This is not hard. This is broken. This is the most broken fight in all of the Arkham games. Arkham Knight's already as bad as it is, but for them to embrace this kind of shitty content just goes to show how little care they had for the Arkham games. Like, I know there are people that hate Arkham Origins, but they hate it for really stupid reasons. But then they'll say this DLC is better than Arkham Origins. There are those people out there. But just look how close I was to dying. I was close to dying because of the poor designs with the room, because of the choice of animation that Catwoman had, because of my lack of player agency. With like this combat system isn't built for player agency. It's not built to actually allow customization of your moves. You're at the mercy of whatever move Catwoman does. You're at the mercy of whatever enemy she chooses to prioritize, because that's part of the paired animation nature of this combat system. And then they want you to do all this in a room that is built for more of a hitbox-based system, rather than a paired animation system. Like, if you were playing as Batman in this moment, with his gadgets, or you're playing as a character with very similar capabilities, this would feel a little bit better. But playing as a character with limited capabilities, with limited gadgets, who does very little damage because she's meek compared to the likes of Batman, and it has to be conveyed in the gameplay for whatever reason. As I recall correctly, the Riddler bots in the main game didn't take this much punishment. And the Riddler bots in the early phases of this fight, they go down a lot faster. And critical strikes actually mean a fucking difference. But here, they don't mean anything at all. They've just increased the health of the Riddler bots for whatever reason to complement their whole idea of challenge. Where they feel a broken game is suitable for a fucking challenge, almost on the same degrees as New Capcom. And they, like New Capcom, think that stupid runs should be embraced. Freaking New Capcom thinking Resident Evil Village is designed for Knives Out, and they take so much pleasure in the idea of people doing Knives Out, doing a fucking impractical run, doing a run that just makes the game like 1% finish, and it's befitting for people who are just brain dead, who have no sense of fatigue. People like Tynehard, who just relish the whole idea, and they wear those kind of runs like badges of honor, as if conquering them actually means something significant, as if you somehow put yourself high above everyone else. Fucking arrogant individuals. That's what they are. Fucking arrogant. Like, this DLC really conveys a sense of arrogance. Like, they know they can design their game as shit as possible, but they know people will like it, because people will not be able to identify the complete lack of care displayed by Roxanne. Look at that. I did a double counter. She jumped backwards onto the electrified floor. That's not me. That's the fucking game. Look, again! I get put onto the electrified floor! Well, because Catwoman is so limited in her capability, she doesn't have any special animations aside from this, and this does very little damage. Stop prioritizing him! Prioritize the guys on the actual non-electrified floor, please. Oh my god. And at any moment, those lasers can come and attack me. Those lasers can come right at me right now. And look, that guy went off the non-electrified floor, and I took damage, because she prioritized him. Why couldn't it be like 9 squares? Why couldn't it be 6 squares? Why is it 4? You really think this is befitting for no damage? There's a reason why I say you need to design your games for no damage. But people want to say, oh, the game doesn't actually have any kind of challenge listed that indicates, like, no damage is possible. So like, why are you wasting your time trying to do a run that the game didn't bother acknowledging? It's because designing a game for no damage actually causes the game to be better. But it's clear they didn't design this fucking DLC for no damage. So therefore, they were fucking brain dead. They had no thought in comprehending their own designs. Almost on the same degrees as new Capcom and Resident Evil Village, and Resident Evil 3 Remake, and Resident Evil 0. Like, you think I do these no damage runs for arrogance? You think I do it to make myself look good? I'm doing it to actually make the game look like it's fucking finished! If it's designed for no damage, then it means that the game is well designed. You're not fighting the fucking game. Fucking idiots. Thinking that I'm doing no damage because I want to put myself above others like an arrogant asshole. It's just so tragic that they wanted to conclude the Arkham games by doing this with their fucking DLCs. But this DLC is worse than the other ones. The other ones are average. They don't contribute in any way to the story of the Arkham games. They're just there because they're challenge maps, and they had to think of something, right? But in order to do so, they just made the villains come back and break out of jail because they wanted to preserve that atmosphere with Batman. Because Batman's always associated with a darker atmosphere, and how can you have a darker atmosphere without villains, right? So they just conveniently break out of jail, and the allies are just cleaning up his mess. Because that's what they are, just a cleanup crew. It's not exactly like you're passing on some... Look at that, I'm taking damage while I'm in midair. So even when I'm in midair, the game still classes me as touching the ground. But the DLCs just don't contribute in any sort of way to the actual game. They don't contribute to the story. They don't contribute to substantial content. They're just average, at best, aside from the Red Hood DLC. This one is not even in that circle. This DLC is not in that circle at all. This is a what the fuck were they thinking DLC. Just what the fuck were they thinking? At least the first Predator encounter you were doing against the enemies, even though it just reuses assets from Batman Arkham City because they had no brains when designing that part, and they just couldn't think of anything creative to do. At least it was a fun encounter. And the idea that the enemies were random in their paths and you had to use your knockdown smashes like strategically to generate noise and isolate threats is smart. But what happened? What happened to that level of intelligence when they were designing this fight?
Better be recording for posterity.
Like, look how low my life is because I've been taking damage thanks to the game. And these lasers are just playing a huge role in actually putting a lot of pressure on me for all the wrong reasons. Oh my god. Like, did they want you to view this game as a joke? And they're just making it known with this DLC? Like, at this point, their thoughts on wanting to make this game look like a joke actually bleed into the gameplay, and that's what we're getting with this fucking piece of content. And I can't believe there are people on Batman Arkham Videos' channel who actually commented on this DLC, and they called it better than the other DLCs. Fucking idiots. That just goes to show how dense a lot of people are in the gaming community. They don't care about how the game actually plays. They don't care about the designs put in place with their games. As long as there's a lot of cutesy dialogue, as long as they get to admire Catwoman's supposed sexiness, as long as they get to admire the dialogue between Catwoman and Riddler, that's satisfactory for them. Because they don't understand what it means to be a fucking game, when the gameplay is what actually makes up the core foundation of actually tethering you to the narrative.
When my robots defeat you, make sure to crawl out of my lovely factory and die on the street.
Like, if these people think this is challenging, then I'd hate to see what they do in their real-life jobs if they were to actually be in some kind of leadership position. I imagine they'd be selling a lot of defective products, because this is defective beyond so many levels. And like, I could just not do my takedowns and just do nothing but critical strikes, because I think when your bar is full, you do increased damage, and your critical strikes do increased damage as well. But look, I just... Every fucking time. Every single fucking time with this game. Just dodging into the electrified floor because she prioritized that guy. Oh, great lasers. Yeah, you could tell this is Riddler, like, breaking the fourth wall. Like, he's broken the fourth wall in the sense that he understands the game world that he's in. He understands how the combat works. So in order to counter actual good play, he designed this room because he knew that the developers wouldn't be able to comprehend their own designs. He knew that players would never survive this room because the combat isn't built for this. This is the ultimate Riddler challenge right here in his mind. Like, imagine if he used this to conquer Batman. Batman would be dead in seconds if he had to sit through this kind of shitty combat system. Catwoman would be dead in, like, a millisecond with this room.
You think you could just steal from me by charging such a high hourly rate, Mr. Lawyer? Evening, officer.
Just a fucking disgrace. And look! You see that? I was holding R2 and square to hit the guy on the ground, but whenever an enemy is trying to attack you, if you're still holding R2, you can't counter. You have to let go of R2 in order to counter, but by then the enemies might have already attacked you in the time that you're letting go of R2. I'm taking damage during a counter animation. And that right there, the forward momentum of the Bola screwed me. And you want to know what people like Tynard will still try to do? They'll still try to do this DLC no damage. They'll still try to do it no damage. Because as much as they feel this section is probably shit, or rather they feel the section's well designed. Like, they feel the section's so well designed, that'd be disrespectful to not do these kind of restrictions. It's like when he was commenting on me doing a potential Knives Out video for Resident Evil Village, and he was asking the strategies I was doing, even though I literally said in the video that he commented on that Knives Out is just a great example of how fucking dense the developers at New Capcom were. And I said I don't support the run whatsoever, but he's still acting like I support the run, so he's asking what strategies I'm doing for Knives Out for whatever reason, as if he wants to be informed. And then the guy still wastes time trying to do no damage of the bosses in Resident Evil Village Knives Out on Village of Shadows difficulty, as if they're worth doing. Like, why does he waste his time? Get a fucking life, you loser. If that's seriously what your life is based around, just wasting time doing stupid runs, playing the game like it's 1% finished, and then you ride the hype of the developers when they're saying that their game is designed for this kind of restriction, and then you want to insult people like me and call me the arrogant one when you yourself are being very arrogant and you think you understand what actually constitutes functional design? And then his explanations that he was trying to use in order to counter my claims, saying that, oh, the reason why they put that challenge in for Knives Out is to be done on easy difficulty, but apparently he didn't even listen to a lot of the points I was mentioning in that video. And he didn't even hear the counter-argument I had for that, because New Capcom demonstrated that they don't know how to actually be specific in their descriptions, whereas old Capcom does, like with the End of Zoe DLC, when they say beat the End of Zoe DLC fist only, on normal or Joe Must Die difficulty. They didn't specify easy difficulty, and they specified normal, so there was no reason to play fist only on Joe Must Die difficulty. And they understood that they wanted to embrace actual creative designs. They wanted to embrace the survival horror designs of the End of Zoe DLC. They wanted people to be creative with the crafting resources. They didn't want to support a fucking fan base that just wanted to do absolutely nothing but bare bones gameplay, because they have no sense of fatigue, and honestly, it's just their brains must work very differently if they're processing an opposite emotion for an opposite situation. Like, his reasoning was, oh, they designed it because the whole challenge of actually trying to get the LZ Answerer constitutes the challenge actually being a thing, and why it's worth 70,000 CP, and he's like, why is that so much of a mystery? Well, let me just counter that by saying, in Resident Evil 7, you had to get the circular saw by doing very specific restrictions as well. And you could almost argue that they're on the same level as what you'd be doing with the LZ Answerer. But nowhere in Resident Evil 7 do they specify beat the game using close combat weapons only, beat the game using only the circular saw. So based on that, do you understand why it's a fucking mystery? Why New Capcom actually wanted to put in Knives Out for Resident Evil Village, because they didn't comprehend their own designs, and then you want to say, oh, it's because of that challenge of actually getting the LZ answer. Well then, why didn't they do the same with Resident Evil 7? Why didn't they do the same with other Resident Evil games where New Game Plus weapons are actually a thing? Like, do you not understand the importance of specificity in your descriptions, idiot? Do you not understand how important communication is?
You'll regret this.
I'm just relating this to this fucking DLC. Rocksteady had no care when designing Arkham Knight, and they indicated this several times, and you're supposed to infer that they didn't care.
I was going to track you down after I broke out of here. Thanks for saving me the trouble.
And you'd think that after so many years of actually doing the Batman Arkham games, they would understand how to perfect the formula properly for how to deliver a satisfying combat system. But they just lost all sense. This was designed by amateurs. This was designed by mentally retarded individuals. Just like the fucking people that think Resident Evil Village is designed for Knives Out, and they want to glamorize it by saying it's the most impressive challenge ever by making it where it's 70,000 CP, and they want you to play on easy difficulty, as if like that's what they want you to do, even though they don't specify it in the slightest.
When my robots escape, you make sure to crawl out of my lovely factory and die on the street.
Like, look at her. Look at her just attacking enemies when they're on the electrified floor. Look at them just backing up. And look at the delay on the counter, because I was in the recovery frames of the whip attack animation, and the whip is the only weapon I have that can actually knock him down.
Taking vengeance on me?
And people want to say, oh, luck is actually a factor to consider with that challenge. No, it isn't. Luck has nothing to do with challenge whatsoever. Where'd you get that fucking idea? Your mom? What a joke. Like, the entire time I'm doing this, I'm just thinking, what would Tynard be thinking about right now when he's loving this DLC? The guy has no filter. The guy has no filter on his stupidity.
This is your home, Riverbot. Defend it.
Wow, it's done. Oh, I feel so accomplished. Oh, I feel like I learned the game better. Oh, I feel like I used smart tactics. I gained a lot of pleasure from the experience by indulging in a minimalist run that the developers are forcing you to use because they don't respect their combat system at all. Yeah, I feel so accomplished. I feel like I put myself above other people. Wow. Yeah, humiliate me some more, Tynard. Like, just make fun of me. Just try to come up with whatever stupid argument you have that just doesn't fall in line with what it means to be a human being, as if some alien would ever come up with those kind of ideas. Just completely irrational, like, illogical conclusions, just non sequiturs and the like. It's not going to stop right there, guys. I am still going to continue this. And I could have countered him. I could have tried to counter him, but I'm so focused on doing nothing but critical strikes. Like, the poor designs are encroaching so much on my ability to do something skillful, and I'm just limiting myself because of the poor designs, that I'm making these mistakes. It's not my fault, it is the game's fault, if it's putting that much pressure upon me, because the game doesn't understand what it's trying to do. And if the game doesn't understand, then the developers don't understand. And people like Tynard don't understand. Like, this was designed by people that hate this game. If they're forcing you to do a minimalist run like this, of this combat encounter right here, then it shows they don't love the game. If you have to, like, play the game like it's 1% finished, if you have to play where you're not going to be indulging in any of the creative designs, and you think that's an accomplishment, you think that is something to relish, then you don't love your game. You're doing this. You're doing these minimalist runs to try to get some kind of new feeling out of the game because you felt the game wasn't challenging enough thanks to the amount of times you played it. But that's just a great example of people just letting that get to their heads. That's just a great example when people start to, like, look at that bullshit, look at that fucking bullshit. Just evading into the laser. But that's just a great example of people letting fatigue get into their heads. And if they let too much fatigue get into their heads, then they won't feel any fatigue, because that's just how numb we get to such stimuli if we're overexposed. And that's exactly what people like Tynar do. They play the game so much, they understand it, and then they let it cross their minds to do a really stupid run to try to get a new experience, because they want to suffer, apparently. Which, why can you ever even trust a sadomasochist like that? Why do you bother even trying to rationalize a sadomasochist? Why do you even try to, like, form arguments as a sadomasochist? Why do you try to pass off like you understand functional designs, like you understand normal human behavior? With your, oh, I want to suffer just because it's fun to suffer, and I want to pass it on to other people because people are gullible. Yeah. That's just the result of them letting themselves go. Yeah, they really let themselves go. If they're going to be letting such thoughts cross their minds like that. And look at that, had no control just then. Had no control over what animation Catwoman was doing. So much fun right now. Expertly designed. Expertly designed gameplay right here. People who actually understand their game designed this. And it's clear they wanted to settle for a shit show. They really did. It really sickens me when people like Tynar try to rationalize their thoughts as being a normality, as if it's not some massive outlier, as if it's not mentally retarded. And it's those same people that design these DLCs. It's these same people that try to, like, force their romance upon other people, to force people to see what it's like to play the game in a minimalist manner. And they're saying it's okay to take damage, this and that. It's okay to play like a toddler. It's okay to mash like crazy, like some brainless brute. Like, at this point, the critical strikes feel so much like mashing buttons at this point. There's no control over which target I'm going to prioritize, because why think, right? This is built for mindless play, like Tynard's runs. It's like when Tynar does Resident Evil 4, knife only. Why does he waste time? Why does he try to make the gameplay look awkward? Why does he try to make it look impractical? Why is he trying to make fights that are good, bad? Why is he trying to make fights that are already bad even more shit? And then he tries to pass it off as some kind of skillful run, and he says it's due to smart tactics. It's due to a better understanding of the game, and that if you don't play like Tynar does, you're automatically a fool. Wow. Brilliant deduction, brilliant rationality right there. Wow, fucking, like, stupid. That is fucking feeble. Like, that's all I can think about when I'm doing this DLC. And you know, if Tynar didn't post that really stupid comment on my first Knives Out video for Resident Evil Village, I would be thinking nothing of him. I would not be letting those kind of thoughts intrude on my personal space in my head. But when I'm in these kind of situations right here, where I'm just fighting the game at this point, not the actual enemies, like, those thoughts are always going to be the default thing that comes to mind. Because I have to create some kind of analogy to really compare to the sheer stupidity displayed by the developers of this fucking DLC. And Tynar just always comes to mind. And as I said before, in one of my Arkham videos, Tynar is the Joker to my Batman. He is my Joker, pretty much. That's how irrational Joker's thoughts are, compared to Batman's rational thought. And how people try to say, oh, he's not actually rational, oh, he's actually insane, this and that. It's like, where's the rationale for that, guys? You gotta wonder why exactly Tynar even has the perseverance to even continue these pointless runs. Like, why does he still go on? Oh, what, he's gonna be like Connor Kenway and just be like, because no one else will? Or is he gonna be like Best Gamer Challenges where he says, oh, it's because no one else has done this. Only 1% of individuals actually do these runs. And I want to be a part of that minority. Because being a part of that minority means I'm a strong-willed individual, means I'm strong in mind. Like fucking Best Gamer Challenges. Yeah, it doesn't even cross their simple minds. This whole question doesn't cross their minds. Why do you think 1% of people do these kind of runs? Why do you think 1% of people even waste time trying to do, like, restrictions for a game that is poorly designed? Why do they waste time trying to do, like, no damage and knife only? Why do they waste time trying to no damage this piece of shit? That never crosses their mind because of how deluded they are. Because of how childish their mindscape is. And I just worry because if they are willing to let their minds just turn to mush when playing these games, what does that say for their real-world counterparts? What does that say for how they are when they actually perform in their real jobs? That is very concerning. That's really concerning, guys. It's how dense these individuals are. It's how dense anyone is if they think this is suitable. If they think this DLC is somehow befitting for an actual challenge. Wow, awesome. I managed to do that without taking so much damage. I feel so accomplished. Because I took a bit of damage here and there because of poor designs, I'm able to excuse it. When people who have no sense of thought will just look at that and just say that is how it goes every single time. But that's just one possible outcome out of millions of potential outcomes, and I'm sure like 99% of that million outcomes are just going to be like you ending up either dead or you're just going to have very low life. And what do you bet Tynard is just going to be like, oh, I'm ranting like a raving idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. My attitude and tone is befitting of someone who's just going on a rant, not really like thinking objectively. Yeah, because that's exactly how you judge things superficially. Yeah, with such superficial thought. You go to Godzilla Mendoza's video on Arkham Knight's horrendous storytelling. He might be very comedic with his dialogue and with his choice of videos and music, but he conveys a sense of seriousness. Do you not know what satire is? When you use hilarity like that to convey a serious thought? When you're using sarcasm to convey a serious thought? Like, do you not have as colorful a comprehension to actually comprehend that? It's like apparently Tynar just looks at that first Knives Out video. And he looks at the way I'm acting, he looks at my supposed insulting demeanor as just being who I am, as if there's no seriousness to actually take away, as if there's nothing you can actually comprehend about the words. It's just all in the attitude, it's all in the choice of inflection of certain words and emotions. And that's exactly where I am, right? You don't need to watch my previous videos, you don't need to watch anything else on my channel to really understand who I am. You only need to watch one video, and that's exactly who I am. Yeah, that's exactly how scientists would actually do. They just look at one outlier and just say that is how the data is always going to be. Yeah, I definitely went to school, right? I know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm just basing my my conclusions on one video, and I can't actually read into the subtleties involved with the choice of certain words. And with the actual hidden messaging involved in my words. It's all based on emotions, it's all based on that. Yeah, it's not based on actual logic. Like, to think that anyone could be so lost as to voice the kind of comments that Tynard voices. That's exactly what you get with these individuals who design these DLCs. Get over here. But there's just so much more I want to say, guys. There's just so much more I want to say, but in order to get into a more cohesive fashion, I'd have to actually write all these thoughts down. Not just flow with it, guys. I have to get these thoughts down, but I don't want to waste time with this. Like, you guys have already seen how shit this combat system is. But hey, let's go one more time, right? Like, you might be thinking, why am I continually restarting this, even though I've already admitted it's shit? That must mean I have perseverance, right? That must mean I'm actually taking a lot of pleasure from this. No, it's not that I take any pleasure from this. I take a lot of pleasure from the fact that I get to shit all over this piece of content. Because that's what any normal individual would do when they're trying to make a mockery of idiotic developers who think this is suitable for their game, who have no clear comprehension of their own gameplay designs, who want to make a mockery of everything that they set up in the Arkham games. And that's another thing as well. Dragging out scenarios, you hear the same dialogue all the time. Like, do you really think that hearing dialogue that is befitting for a 5-minute section is going to still hold any sort of value in an hour-long section? It's like when Best Gamer Challenges does his knife-only video against Stefano in The Evil Within 2, and Stefano is one of the most interesting characters ever made in gaming history, but you're just gonna reduce him to just white noise. When you're just wasting time doing a restriction that the game isn't designed for, because the game actually wants to embrace creativity. It doesn't want to force the player into a situation where you're just gonna be playing the game like it's 1% finished. There's a skill to pacing, but people like Tynard and Best Gamer Challenges don't understand the whole value of the pacing.
When my robots defeat you, make sure to crawl out of my lovely factory.
And then they want to say, oh, there's something to actually look at. Like, there's actual data to look at when you're wondering why only 1% of people or 0.5% of people are indulging in these kind of runs that no normal human being would do. Because it's fucking impractical. Like, what are you gonna do, jump off a cliff? There's a reason why no normal individual would jump off a cliff and commit suicide. And you think there's some kind of value to that? You want to explore that possibility? Like, are you that gullible? It's exactly who designed this DLC. Gullible people. What do you bet, like, people like Tynard and Best Gamer Challengers are the kind of people who are like, why do 1% of people walk around naked in the snow? You know, maybe there's something to explore right there, so I'm gonna do it as well. Because because if I do that, I'll be strong-willed. I'll actually be stronger than all these other individuals if I actually walk naked in the snow. When it goes against basic biology, it goes against basic biological functions. That's why we need coats and the like to actually survive out in the cold, because our bodies can't handle the cold. And we die from frostbite, we die from pneumonia, we die from all these things that are caused by that, because our bodies are weakened by the cold. Our immune system is completely weakened by all of that, and we can't even regulate our body temperature correctly out in the cold. Like, that is a really good analogy for people that try to look at these kind of games, and they want to wonder why 1% of people do these kind of runs. These kind of minimalist runs that the game just isn't designed for. That goes against the idea of functional designs. That's just fucking impractical. Only an alien would even consider the possibility of doing that. I'm sure the people who just walk naked out in the snow have no respect for their lives whatsoever. Or they feel they have nothing left because they're burned out with life. Exactly what I would relate to gamers. And again, Tydar's probably gonna hear this and be like, why are you just ranting? Why are you just rambling on with whatever mindless dialogue you have when there's actual subtleties involved with what I'm saying? But he's too arrogant to really comprehend all this. Just like the developers who can't comprehend their own designs when designing this piece of content. This piece of shit content. And look at those lasers just moving around. At any moment, they could mess with my strategy. And I say strategy, there's no strategy with this. I mean, look at that. Takedown animation. Onto the electrified floor. No control over what animation Catwoman does. Like, why isn't there any mechanic for Catwoman to just climb onto the ceiling? Like, I hope there's some kind of PC mod where you can just stay up top. And maybe you can just do, like, one-hit downs with your bolas. Like, you just put a one-hit kill mod with your bolas. And just throw bolas at the top level so that you can just skip this shitty fight. Like, why do you get iframes from the lasers when you go into a counter or takedown animation, but not from the electrified floor? And you wanna know something else, guys? There's a challenge map that is based around this environment. But they don't have electrified floors, they only have the laser grid. That's all they have. So if they had the gall to put in a laser grid and an electrified floor at the same time, why didn't they do it for the challenge maps? It's the same as in Resident Evil Village. Why is it that Village of Shadows difficulty removes so many stun animations that actually balance out the gameplay, that are actually part of the fundamental gameplay structure, yet you go to something like Mercenaries mode, which is scaled around normal difficulty? Like, why isn't Mercenaries mode scaled around Village of Shadows difficulty? It should always be scaled around the highest difficulty, because that's the difficulty the developers wanted you to be on. That's the difficulty that showcases what the developers actually value, what they actually view as a functional and smart difficulty mode. Like, why are they embracing a false model right there? Is it that Village of Shadows is the false model? Or is it that normal difficulty and the way Mercenaries mode is scaled is the false model? So in this case right here, with Batman Arkham Knight, is the idea of having the laser grid and the electrified floor the false model? Or is the idea of having just the laser grid in the challenge map the false model? Which is the design that they wanted to go for? That doesn't make any fucking sense, guys. It really doesn't. That's just how fragmented the team was at Resident Evil Village. And that's how fragmented this team was when designing Catwoman's Revenge. This is the worst DLC I have ever played in any game ever. And I've gone on and on about the Ghost Survivors DLC from Resident Evil 2 Remake, or I've gone on and on about like Project Resistance or other DLCs from the Resident Evil games, but of course not including Resident Evil 7, because Resident Evil 7 actually knows how to do DLC content. But when talking about that Ghost Survivors DLC, the issue there was not poor designs, the issue was lack of effort. The issue was they didn't want to do much with those DLCs, because they knew they could fool their idiotic fan base, because it doesn't take much to satisfy the Resident Evil fan base. Like, look at the amount of people that glamorize Resident Evil 1 Remake, that simplistically designed game, that has no content to it, that has no imagination, no creativity, no challenge, just run past everything like it's like it's a game. Just run past everything because the enemies are so simplistically designed. Like, the gamers don't care how little effort is put into the gameplay, so long as the other aspects that have nothing to do with the gameplay are satisfactory. That's how little imagination the Resident Evil fanbase has. And that's how little imagination the Ghost Survivors DLC had. But at least it doesn't embrace poor designs. This is not even about lack of effort. This is lack of effort, but taken to a whole new level. Not just with the complete reusing of assets from Batman Arkham City, like with the first initial Predator encounter, and just reusing a fight format that you've had many times in Batman Arkham Knight with the Riddler bots. But there's complete lack of effort displayed in their ability to comprehend their own designs. There's complete lack of effort displayed in actually designing a combat system that is befitting for actual creativity, that actually encourages people to indulge in the complex designs of the combat system. Like, there are no words to describe this stupid piece of content. But I'm sure there's someone out there that thinks it's lit, that thinks it's actually lit to do these kind of stupid restrictions. It's like when people say knife only in the Resident Evil games is lit, as if it's somehow the most impressive thing ever, when all it does is just highlight how little effort the developers actually put in to their environments, to their enemies, to their scenarios, to their combat systems. They make the enemies so poorly designed that it just leads to this really confused messaging where it's like, we want you to run past everything even when it doesn't look like it will make sense realistically. We want to design these fake scenarios where it seems like we don't want you to run from the enemies because they will mess you up if you actually try to run away from them, when in actuality it's better to run away from them, just like that Stronghold Lycan encounter from Resident Evil Village. Like, this DLC is filled with so much confused messaging. It reminds me of that one statement Under the Mayo presented when he was discussing the differences between Alien Isolation and Prey. And he was saying that Alien Isolation's inventory system is totally confused because it wants to be like Resident Evil, where you're thinking about what you want to pick up, but it functions like Doom. You can pick up as many items as you want. Like, picking up one item does not prevent you from picking up another item. There's no consequence to picking up too many things. That is what makes the inventory system so confused in Alien Isolation. But I really didn't see his justification for saying that, and I think he only said it because he didn't know how to properly convey in simple words, because of the fact that you go to the dead bodies and just search them, and it pulls up that stupid text box that just slows you down. Like, that's how you say it in simple words, but he had to confuse it by saying what he was saying about Alien Isolation's inventory system when he was comparing it to Resident Evil and Doom, rather than just conveying it in simple words. That's what he actually meant. He just hates that you get a text box that's pulled up for Alien Isolation when you just want to take some of them or all of them, but taking all of them just causes you to, like, deny other items that you currently have the max of. So what is the whole point of this whole choice of taking some of them if taking all of them just causes you to automatically deny the items that you already have in abundance? That's what he actually was meaning when he said the text box doesn't make any sense and it just slows you down all the time, so it just leads to a very tedious search parameter. That's what he actually meant. But that's just confused messaging right there. Just on the same degree as what I'm discussing right now. We're Resident Evil Village embracing that Knives Out challenge, and people saying knife only is lit. And then with this DLC, just completely confused as to what they were trying to do with this combat scenario right here. And look how low my life is, and I just countered that guy. I had no control over where Catwoman was going to go, and I took damage. I still can't believe Serpent17 in this walkthrough, like, he was discussing a lot of the same issues I'm discussing right now with this DLC, but he did it in such a partial manner. He was not laying into them. It almost felt like he was sugarcoating everything with what he was saying. Like, as much as these issues are bad, it's not that big of a deal, and he still considers it hard. But how can you feel that? How can you not lay into the developers? How can you not denounce the developers for what they did with this piece of content? But I'm not going to hold back any punches whatsoever compared to Serpent17. I'm going to lay into this development team with everything I have right now. And I am delivering everything I have right now in this video right now. This is not good. This is poorly designed. Mentally retarded individuals designed this piece of content. And the fan base doesn't understand what the big deal is. Like, they just want to say that gaming is mindless. They want to say the actual mentalities that go into actually playing games and designing them is not on the same degree as going into a military job, for instance, or some kind of high profession like statistics and the like. But that just shows how ignorant and simple-minded they are if they don't bother comprehending the mentalities involved. Like, what do you think the mentalities were prior to actually implementing these designs? This screams a developer who had no care. This screams a developer that just rushed this DLC out the door to satisfy their fan base because they wanted to deliver something out. Almost on the same degrees as Ubisoft, just copy and pasting everything. It means a big deal. You might not think so, because you're fucking stupid and retarded, and you therefore have no grasp as to how the real world actually works. You don't have any grasp as to how a job actually works. You don't have any grasp on anything related to mentalities. But that's just how simple-minded individuals of this generation are. They'll just look at this and just ride the stereotype of, oh, gamers are always going to be idiots. There's nothing related to work here. There's nothing related to actual professionalism and the like. But this really blurs the line between personal and professional, because the developers, in their complete lack of care towards Batman Arkham Knight, let their thoughts bleed into the game, and that's why this piece of content is shit. That's why this piece of content is filled with poor designs. That's why this piece of content is favoring designs that are not befitting for the kind of combat system it's favoring. And that's why people like Tynard want to somehow provide some merit to the idea of poor designs actually being good designs. And he has no sense of pacing, he has no sense of fatigue. He just wants to say, oh, this is actually the most impressive thing ever. And then he wants to say, I'm the bad guy right here. Yeah, I'm not the one posting like long essays as comments on other people's videos. I can speak as much as I want because that's the whole point of a fucking commentary, but when you're trying to post a comment to YouTube and you want to formulate it like it's a fucking essay, like a college essay, all to convey that you feel I'm a fucking idiot, that just goes to show how immature you are. And that immaturity is affecting your ability to play games properly and to actually show some love for your fucking games. But this DLC was designed by a developer who had no love for Batman Arkham Knight, and they want you to just mindlessly attack everything. They want you to not care about taking damage because that's how skillful Catwoman is, apparently. It's not like she's a master thief or anything. It's not like she actually has cunning, like almost on the same levels as Batman. She just mindlessly brute forces everything. Like, she doesn't care about damage. She's actually resistant to pain, this and that. She just bangs her head against the wall, and she actually succeeds. That's what this feels like right here. It feels like you're banging your head against the wall to get some kind of result, and you're not just caring about damage at all. It fucks with your combo when you take damage. You then have to build your combo back up, and just hope that you don't die so quickly. This is all luck. This is all built for people who have no brain power. This is all built for people that don't want to use the full percentage of their brain to actually comprehend what they're doing. And people like Tynhard just want to actually be a part of that group that wants to bang their head against the wall as if it's the most skillful thing ever, as if you get something worth it. That's actually the best way to show the full potential of a game, and even acknowledged in this description that he wants to show the full potential of the game by playing the game like it's 1% finished, by playing the game like you're banging your head against the wall, by playing the game without indulging in any of the creative designs, by actually just like forcing your way through poor designs, by actually trying to wear those poor designs like badges of honor, as if you conquered them, as if conquering them by just playing the game like it's 1% finished is somehow a huge accomplishment. And then he wants to defend himself by just attacking people like me, by just calling me the fucking idiot. And it's those kind of people that designed this DLC. I'm gonna reiterate on this for the millionth time. And I know Tyner is going to say, oh, I'm just rambling again, this and that. I'm just ranting. I'm just not thinking about what I'm saying. I'm just being a child. Well, how else am I supposed to be? I can't exactly be an adult with children, because children designed this DLC, and people like you are children, Tynard. I'm so disappointed with this game, guys. Like, I've already hated Batman Arkham Knight, and I consider it to be my least favorite of the Arkham games, and it just doesn't have a lot of charm to it. Minus like the Red Hood DLC. But this DLC, this Catwoman's Revenge DLC, just makes those thoughts known. It puts those thoughts to light. Like, all of my thoughts here are properly conveyed physically within the game, within this DLC. And it's just so sad. It is so sad, guys. The team that made this had no love for this game. And it's not like there wasn't any love for the game back in the beginning of Batman Arkham Knight, because there wasn't any love for the game back in the beginning of Batman Arkham Knight. You could tell just based on like certain combat encounters and Predator encounters in Batman Arkham Knight and the way the DLCs are handled. There is no love and care put into this game, guys, and this DLC just brings those thoughts to light. It brings them out of the shadows and into the light. The developers had no love. People like Tynard have no love for their games when they're embracing the kind of stupid runs, and the developers fully support those kind of people because that's what they're designing this DLC for. It's just so tragic, guys. It's really tragic. But this is what's going to be the video, guys. I'm not going to do a walkthrough of this DLC. I'm just going to do this commentary right here. There are just no words to describe how shit this DLC is. There are no words to describe how much the developers displayed little to no care with Batman Arkham Knight. I just need to stop right here, guys. I just need to stop.